Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Principal's Playbook. My name is Dr. Michael Bishop, and I'm your host. I am a retired Virginia educator, having spent 31 years in education, all in the Commonwealth, with 17 of those years as a high school principal. This is our very first episode, and you might be wondering, what is the Principal's Playbook? Well, as a former coach for 14 years, every season we had a playbook, something we used to teach our players what we wanted to accomplish, how we would operate, and how we would succeed together. Years later, while teaching part time at George Washington University, I taught a course lesson titled What They Don't Teach in Principal School. I did that for nearly 10 years and eventually decided to turn that idea into a book. This past fall, I published my first book, What They Don't Teach in Principal School. And essentially, it's one of those things that allows a new principal to have some ideas. It was published on Amazon this past November, and you'll find the link in the description below. I'll also be presenting the book this March at the Common Ground Educational Leadership Conference in Towson, Maryland, on March 19th and 20th. I hope you'll join us there. I'm reading from a script so that I can make sure I did this properly. So if my eyes are not looking directly at you, that's why. So you might be asking yourself, why did I write this book? And why am I hosting this program online? Because when you're starting out as a principal, very little in your educational leadership coursework truly prepares you for what the job actually is. You think you know because you watched your own principal and you formed opinions based on brief interactions. But the reality behind the scenes is very, very different. Current and aspiring administrators, especially those new to the role, need a practical, real world resource. I hope the Principal's Playbook becomes that resource for you. When I became a principal in 2008, I know I needed help. I didn't always ask for it, but if something like this had existed, I would have used it without hesitation. So, just a little about my background. I grew up in Austintown, Ohio, and earned my teaching degree at Youngstown State University in 1993. I moved to Virginia in 94 and I taught social studies at the middle and high school level until 2006. I earned a master's degree in educational administration from George Washington University in 2006 and served as an assistant principal at Cosby High School from 2006 to 2008. I became a principal in 2008, serving at Lee Davis High School from 2008 to 2010, and during that time I earned my doctoral degree in educational leadership from George Washington University, along with an advanced certificate in educational facility planning from San Diego State University. I then had the privilege of serving as the founding principal of Patriot High School in Prince William County from 2010 to 2025. I retired last year to care for my wife while she was on hospice care. But that's enough about me. What can this resource do for you? Well, my hope is that it provides you with practical ideas, processes, and structures that support your success as an administrator. I want to help you navigate challenges I know you will encounter: leadership issues, organizational systems, procedures, and the realities that come with leading a school. Everything we discuss in this program comes from real experience over 17 years as a principal. Remember, the national average for principals is 5 years. So let's get started just briefly. Let's talk about today the interview. When you interview for a principalship, they are not primarily evaluating your ability to manage lunch duty or tardy tables or daily logistics of buses. They want to know what kind of leader you are. They want to hear your vision for the school, what you will do for the organization, and how things will or will not change if you are selected. Most importantly, they, as the interviewer, are trying to answer three questions. Can I work for this person? Can I work with this person? And can I trust this person? Typically, there is a screening process. Your resume and cover letter will be reviewed by either HR, central office, experienced administrators, or all three, depending on the size of the division. You may have an initial screening interview to get into or create a candidate pool for that position. In my experience, through the two interviews I did, it varied. In one case, I was screened by an associate superintendent, followed by an interview with the superintendent's entire cabinet, and then a final interview with community members, teachers, and central office staff. There was about 30 people in the room. I've joked before that it felt like I was interviewing with the cast of Ben-Hur. If you're in my generation, you know what that means. Or for a more modern reference, Titanic. The other process at Lee Davis, it was screened by someone in the central office, and I was placed into a principal pool because I was qualified. So, what did I want to communicate in that interview? What do you want to communicate in that interview? Well, I wanted them to know who I was, what I believed in, and what I would do if I was selected. I shared short term and long term goals, but more importantly, I made it clear that I wanted to learn what needed to be done. There's no sense in walking to an existing school and trying to change everything immediately. Why? Well, because typically you're following one of two people: a principal who was loved by everyone and was a legend, or one who was loved by no one and they helped them pack their bags on the way out the door. Sometimes it's somewhere in between, but more often than not, you're either following the legend or you're looking at the bags go out the door. So you must present yourself as someone who understands that reality. In the interview, you should expect probably 10 questions, with the opening, tell us about yourself, and the last one, do we have any questions for us? Bring a copy of your resume, right? Keep it concise and focused. Do not bring them a 4-page document. 1 page, highlights, where you've worked, what you've done, maybe some goals. If you have a plan, share it. It does not have to be written. You can just talk about, I plan to meet with everyone when I first get the job, and then I'll offer them a chance to meet with me. I'll talk with the current administrative team. I would talk with parents and community members, that kind of stuff. At the end, thank everyone on the panel. If it's feasible, shake hands. This works around a table, but not with a room of 20 or 30 people. By shaking hands, you're giving them kind of an old school reference to, I'm one of those people you can trust. I'm one of those people that I'm happy to work with you. And by shaking hands, you're making that gesture known. If you move on in the process, you'll usually know within a few days. Often the next step is an interview with the superintendent, especially in smaller divisions. This is where you can expand on ideas you introduced earlier: how you would introduce yourself to the staff, how you would assess instructional strengths and weaknesses, and how you would build trust. Be ready for the oddball question. Why should I select you? What would you do if you're not selected? How would you handle an angry parent? You're going to get something that you weren't prepared for. And that really kind of brings us to the end of the first episode. I'm hoping that you get the job, and that some of the things I've shared with you provide you with that opportunity. Before we wrap up, I want to remind you that the ideas we discuss here are drawn from my book. What I talked about in this episode is a little more in depth than this. It's called What They Don't Teach in Principal School. It's available now on Amazon, and that link is included in this episode's description. I encourage you to check it out as a companion resource to this series. Be sure to join me for our next episode, when we'll focus on what happens after you get the job, how to settle in, establish credibility, and set yourself up for success in those critical first days and weeks as a principal. And finally, if there's a topic you'd like to hear discussed on a future episode, please share it with us in the comments. Remember that all the comments need to be appropriate and need to be professional. You don't want to have to screen somebody out because of the information or the comments that you're making. It's just, the series is designed to address real questions, real challenges, and your input can help shape what we cover next. Until next time, I'm Michael Bishop, and remember, success comes before work only in the dictionary. Best of luck, everybody.